But the history of injustice has left a legacy for us that finds African Americans represented disproportionately in high numbers in almost every significant social statistic in this country. Proportionately, blacks are the most unemployed, the most incarcerated, the most impoverished, and therefore we are the most vulnerable to schemes, both religious schemes, political schemes, and economic schemes that appear to offer us relief. Blacks in Texas alone, for example, spend $1.1 billion a year on lottery tickets, hoping for economic deliverance. The statistics are harrowing. 70% of our children are born out of wedlock. There is a moral and family crisis in our community. 50% of our children drop out of high school. Could you imagine a black man growing up in America in the 21st century without a high school diploma? Where will he be going? To jail. We have the lowest SAT scores for the 10th year in a row. There are more black men in prison than were enslaved in 1850. There are extraordinarily high disparities between white and black median income, net worth, home and business ownership. We have a shrinking black middle class, partly because of the economy and partly because of the financial illiteracy, bad choices, and the economic leakage in our community. Our consumption habits are partly to blame. We are oversubscribed in debt. We are undersubscribed in credit. We have little equity and ownership in the business of America, and the business of America, in case no one has told you, is business. And it has put us on a track, quite frankly, to help us re-enslave ourselves.
One thing that I usually like about George Fraser is like he always remind black people that success runs in black race. The only problem is that the system has always been working so hard to make us, or to make black people, especially in the United States, not see the problems that are happening always in the environment. Now, for those people who don't know who is Dr. George Fraser, Dr. George Fraser is an well-known entrepreneur, author, and motivational speaker who primarily focuses on networking, wealth creation, and economic empowerment, right? Particularly within the black community. He is the founder or the CEO of the Fraser Net, a global networking organization aimed at fostering connection among black professionals and entrepreneurs to promote business growth and community development. Now, Dr. George Fraser tries to call out things that are happening in the United States, and I believe that most of the things that he says is true, because he points out the entrepreneurial life of black people. One of the most important parts that I feel like most of black professors usually don't touch about this. How about the black economy? How about black people? He is one of those professors who goes way out of his comfort zone and tries to bring together black people to stand together, and also to make them like understand that the system was usually against them, and they have to come with ways that they can help themselves or get out of themselves. Because from his point of view, he's a person who gives stories that he didn't grow where there was wealth, and at some point he understood the problems of growing in an environment where there is no wealth, the poverty life that he went through. For you to see him as a black person who is trying to elevate black people, who is trying to share this message with black people. So I believe that his inputs in calling out black people, especially in the United States, so that they can get to know the truth, because this is the truth, and this is what will make black wealth be, right? So if you're watching this video for the first time, I'll most definitely ask you to subscribe to the channel, join our membership, really get to see what we can offer you. If you wish to buy me a coffee, you can check out my Cash App account. Go buy me a coffee. I'll most definitely appreciate. Now, without much further ado, I want us to dive right into the video, and then I'll be back. We're going to be saying 1, 2, 3 things about this. Adios.
This is simply madness. When America catches a cold, black people catch pneumonia. And if these statistics were spread evenly across all Americans, there would be anarchy. In fact, today, just a shrinking middle class and the raping and pillaging of our economy has produced the Occupy Wall Street movement and the Tea Party movement. The one thing I admire about both movements is that they got angry and they did something about it, whether you agree with them or not. Black people are better, stronger, and more creative and resourceful than our negative statistics articulate. We overcame 350 years of slavery, against civil rights and voting rights, and choked the death out of Jim Crow and public access because we got sick and tired and fed up of being used and tricked and bamboozled. We got angry. But we appear, from my perspective, to be okay, or at least complacent, about these devastating statistics that will lead to a weaker America and a permanent second-class citizenship for black people and brown people in America. You see, I deeply believe that everything begins with words. And through words, you raise consciousness. From consciousness, you gain passion. And from passion, there is action, and from action, there is change. What do we know about change? We know that you will never change that which you tolerate, and you will only change when you get angry. Malcolm X was angry. Dr. King was angry. Mandela was angry. Cesar Chavez was angry. Chief Joseph was angry. Gandhi was angry. Mother Teresa was angry. W.E.B. Du Bois, who spoke here, was angry. In fact, Du Bois was so angry with America, he left America, never to return. He died in Ghana. But what I am talking about, so that you do not misunderstand me, is a positive anger directed towards positive change. Yes, I am angry. I'm most angry with myself because I could have done more and must do more. And I'm doing a lot. So you know I am angry with those who can do more, who look like me, who are not doing what they can do. I have been working in the vineyards for 25 years. I've been exposed to the good, the bad, and the ugly in our community. And yes, there are plenty of good and worthy and church and organizational and kitchen table work being done, but they too struggle for funding, they struggle for participation. At the moment, the bad and the ugly has reared its head in our community, and it's now time to get angry, to change, and to chop it off. We are, or are we so busy living the dream that we have given up fighting for the dream? Or do we expect government to fix this? Does the government have a role in our lives? Of course. We pay taxes and we expect a return on our investment like everybody else in this country. But today, with the political confusion as it is in government, government will be icing on the cake. It will not be the cake. We are the cake. Black people are the cake. And the responsibility for change lies within us. How long are we going to sit around asking others to do for us that which we are not doing for ourselves? My father taught me many years ago, what you do speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you say. What are we doing? If black America is to survive, and there is no assurance, here are the 7 key things to fixing what I believe are our economic and social problems. Number 1, we must rebuild the black family. Every major problem in the black community, including poor education, massive unemployment, senseless violence, hyper-incarceration, low spirituality, low-quality housing options, high mortality rates, can be traced to the disintegration of the black family. No community or culture can exist or thrive and contribute and build economic strength without the family. There is a huge ecosystem in place to strengthen our families. There have been more books and white papers and suggestions and thoughts and ideas on how to do that. Just Google it. Our churches will have to continue to play a key role. We need basic training for couples and newlyweds. We need basic training for financial literacy. We need job creation and development strategies, and we need role models. All of this is available within the context of our community. As I travel around the country, there are endless initiatives dealing with the black family right in our own community. But it is an extraordinarily difficult thing to get the kind of participation in those programs that are necessary. I am very concerned about black women. The percentage of black women who are married declined from 62% to 31% between 1950 and 2002. 42% of black women have never married. And 70% of all black families were headed by a household in 1963. In 2002, only 48%. I am very concerned about our family structure. It is exacerbated by the very high rates of incarceration. That is exacerbated by a less than stellar record of our urban education system. So that's number one. We must work on building the black family, rebuilding the black family. The second thing is we must provide boys in our community with strong, positive black men as mentors, role models, and particularly a connection to their fathers. And black boys, like other children, will imitate and become what they see, and it is critical that black children see strong and positive black men. That is not what they see on television. I have advocated for 20 years that every black person must take responsibility for raising at least one black child other than their own, with a special emphasis on black boys. I'm assuming that you're doing right by your own children, but that is not enough. The question that many of them have is, what child might that be? It could probably be somebody in your own family. All of us have a knucklehead brother or sister with some knucklehead nieces and nephews. Take responsibility for them. Take responsibility and see them through in and out of high school minimally, and in and out of college. So we must take responsibility for our children. Susan Taylor was here last night. She started the National Cares Mentoring Movement because we do not have enough black people mentoring our own children. There are more white people, according to Susan, mentoring black children than black people. That is not acceptable. 60% of the black workforce in America are in executive, 9 million of us, executive, managerial, supervisory, professional specialty, vocational, technical, administrative, sales, and business ownership positions. That is an army of potential role models and mentors to help those who are stuck in the cycle of poverty. In fact, there is no army in the entire world larger than the army of black people that have succeeded in this country. So we have the potential to mentor our own children, but we don't. Number three, we must control the negative peer culture and electronic media that mold many black boys and men into violent, irresponsible, and uncaring human beings, and molds us into consumers. Either black people will control the media that they consume, or the media will control them. We must turn off the television. The average black family watches 70 hours of television a week. That's 10 hours a day. That's madness. Read. Invest in personal growth and development, and there are endless examples of personal growth and development opportunities, workshops, seminars, and conferences in our community. But all of these organizations putting on these workshops struggle, for funding and struggle to get people to come. I've been at this for 25 years. And if it were not for corporate and institutional sponsors, we could not put on our SuccessNet event. We celebrated the 90th one last night. And we struggle to get people to come, to learn and to grow. I'm recommending that we invest at least 2% of our annual income in personal growth and development, to include reading, workshops, seminars. Number 4, understand for the rest of our existence, black people will live in a STEM world, a world based on science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine. And if we are to survive, it will be because we understand and master STEM, and we must teach black children accordingly. 60% of black fourth graders today cannot read at grade level. They're headed for jail. They're building prisons and prison cells based on that number. 60% of us cannot read at grade level in the fourth grade. So the next real emphasis in our schools must be on reading and math. Reading and math. If your child cannot read at a fourth grade level, and you do not know this, shame on you. You need your behind kicked, and you need to do whatever you need to do by any means necessary to make sure your child can read. In the 21st century, we must do that. Number 5, control our economic fate by mastering the principles of networking, entrepreneurship, because we do not lack opportunity. This is the greatest country in the world. I've traveled all over the world. I've been every place that black people have been dispersed, to South Africa, East Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, North Africa, all over South America, and all over the Caribbean. There are no black people in the entire world doing better than we are. In fact, we are the beacon of hope for every single person of African descent in the entire world. So we do not lack opportunity in this great country. What we lack as business people is capacity. There's unlimited opportunity. So the 21st century for us has to be about building our capacity to take advantage of the unlimited opportunities. We must control business and management and understand finance and accounting and manufacturing and saving and investing and banking and tithing. We must teach these principles to our children, which means we must have a cultural change in our community. We must change the kitchen table conversation in our community. It is no longer important what Beyonce is going to wear to the BET Awards. It is no longer important what is happening on Basketball Wives. That is not what is important. What is important is what did you read today? How are your grades? Have you started a savings account? That's what is important. So we must change the kitchen conversation. We must change and live by a new mantra of living below our means and investing the rest, which means we must engage in financial literacy in our community. We are a financially illiterate people, as evidence of what we do with our $1 trillion that we bring to the table in a single year. We must recycle our dollars. Extraordinarily important. We insist that institutional and corporate America, through set-asides, affirmative action, supplier diversity, we insist that you support and utilize our businesses, and we don't even do it ourselves. We don't even support our own businesses, but we insist that you do. There's something not right about that. We must recycle our talent. This is huge. We must recycle our talent. Now, this is a deep issue. I speak in about 25 historically black colleges a year. What would happen if the best and brightest high school athletic talent went to historically black colleges instead of Penn State with a $70 million football program? And we are 59% of the Penn State football team. What would happen if all of that talent went to historically black colleges? You see, money and television and contracts follow talent. But most of our talent, our high potential athletic talent, goes someplace else other than their own colleges. And therefore, within the next 10 years, a third of historically black colleges will have to close. That is economic leakage. Imagine a black America where professional athletes and entertainers recycle their hundreds of millions of dollars annually in developing homes and businesses in their own community. Imagine a black community where our professional athletes and entertainers utilize the services of black lawyers and black sports agents and financial advisors and CPAs. We do not. Imagine a black community where our professional athletes and entertainers were tithing and building first-class educational and sports facilities on black college campuses. We do not. Imagine a black community where our professional athletes and entertainers became lifetime members of organizations like the NAACP or the Urban League or SCLC. Imagine that. And imagine thousands of black athletes and entertainers who build successful businesses, who employ thousands of people, who make a profit and make a difference, who do well while doing good. Imagine another 100 Magic Johnsons in our community, who since his fame in basketball has put himself in a position to start and to build businesses that employ thousands of his own people. Imagine that. The final thing that I think that we must focus on is not excellence, amazingness. My parents taught me when I was growing up that we were going to have to be twice as good to get half as much. They were right then, and they're still right. And I'm here to say to my brothers and sisters that today being good is not good enough. Today you have to be amazing. Amazing. Barack Hussein Obama, now think of that name, Barack Hussein Obama, went up against the Clintons, an inexperienced politician. He won, not because he was good. He was amazing. 2 years ago, I went to AT&T and I bought a Motorola cell phone. It was very good. Last year, I took that cell phone, threw it in the garbage so that I could buy an iPhone because it's amazing. We are throwing very good away. And we're trading it in for amazing. We must become amazing. We have models for amazing in our community. We can do more than sing and dance, play football, baseball, and basketball. And absolutely, we are amazing on the playing field. There's no question about that. We have changed basketball. We have changed football. So we must change in other ways. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. And I'll be happy to take some questions.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we're listening to a Friday Forum featuring Dr. George Fraser, founder and CEO of FraserNet, Inc. We will return to our speaker in a minute for our traditional City Club questions. We encourage you to formulate your questions now, and please remember to keep them brief. In 2012, the City Club of Cleveland will turn 100 years old. Our celebration is already underway, and we will be actively soliciting support from the community through our campaign for a new century. To learn more about the 100th anniversary events, visit the City Club website, www.cityclub.org/100. And if you're not yet a member of the City Club, please do join the City Club. We can use you. We welcome all of you here and those listening to WCPN 90.3 FM, WCLV, WTAM, or one of the many radio stations across the country. Our television broadcast partner is WVIZ PBS IdeaStream. Television broadcasts of the City Club are made possible by Cleveland State University and PNC. Our live webcast is supported by the University of Akron. We're pleased to welcome guests at tables hosted by Kent State University. Thank you for joining us today. And today is the Tom L.E. Bloom Memorial Forum made possible by a generous endowment gift from the Friends of Thomas Bloom. Thank you for your support, and we'd like to offer up some applause for that support. We're also pleased to welcome students who are here as part of the City Club student program. Participation of these students is made possible by a generous grant from the Charles Spar Charitable Trust. With us today are students from the Cleveland School of the Arts and Shaw High School. Well, students. Now we'd like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. And holding the microphone today is City Club Program Director Carrie Miller. First question, please.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you.
Okay. My question is this: it's primarily for our youth. Our youth today struggle with the three. Excuse me. Our youth struggle with the needs of basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter because their home environment is for whatever reason. But however, our youth have a lot of people who are diamonds in the rough, if you will. They have a lot of raw talent. Okay. In the area, what advice would you give to our youth today in these three areas? Economic, education, and entrepreneurship. What would your advice be to the youth?
The first thing I would suggest that they do is they Google Newsweek magazine's article on the 20 most useless college degrees in America. That's the first thing. When you look at those useless degrees, we are engaged in getting many of those degrees, and they are totally useless in the 21st century. The second thing I would ask them to do is to deliver themselves from the toxic people and bloodsuckers in their life, people who drain them of their time, their energy, and their patience. This is extremely important. The people that they associate themselves with will have more influence on them, essentially, than their parents. There was an interesting study that came out recently. It said that it is more important for a child to grow up in a great neighborhood. In a great neighborhood with crazy parents than to grow up in a bad neighborhood with wonderful parents. Think about that. Your associations, your affiliations. What does that mean? It means that if you're hanging out with others that are getting C's and D's, you're going to get a C or D. If you're hanging out with other brothers who are getting in trouble with the law, before they get out of school, you're going to get in trouble with the law. I say to my sister friends when I speak in high schools and colleges, if you're hanging out with young ladies who are having babies before they get out of college or high school, you're going to have a baby. If you're hanging out with other sisters who are getting C's and D's, you're going to get C's and D's. And if you're hanging out with hoes, you're a hoe. Don't spend major time with minor people. People going nowhere want you to go nowhere with them. People doing nothing want you to do nothing with them. If you want to change your life, change your relationships. I speak in prisons 5 or 6 times a year. 5 or 6 times a year. There are 1.1 million black men in prison. And for 20 years I've asked the same question. How did you get here? And the answer is always the same. The people I was associated with, the people I was hanging out with. We must change our associations. That's what I would advise young people to do today. And of course, don't just get out of school with C's and D's. That ain't getting you nothing in the 21st century. You will get no love with C's and D's. Get out with the best grades you can so that you can get into the best schools you can, because that will impact your lifelong earnings. Let me say that differently. Now, this is related to money. Your wealth will determine where you live. Where you live will determine the quality of your children's education. Your children's education and the quality of their education will determine the quality of their higher education, and their higher education will determine the quality or the amount of their lifelong earnings. And your children's lifelong earnings will determine where your children live. And where your children live will determine where your grandchildren go to school. And where your grandchildren go to school will determine the quality of your grandchildren's higher education, and the quality of your grandchildren's higher education will determine your grandchildren's lifelong earnings. Do you understand the cycle of poverty here? Next question.
Dr. Fraser, you spoke, you identified many of the problems that are facing black America today. And of course, many of those same problems are facing white America today. And probably among that entire list, the one that stands out is the matter of unemployment. Mm-hmm. Back in the 30s, when Franklin Roosevelt was president, some of us remember how he attacked the unemployment, which was much more serious than today, but some of the very same problems you described were also here then. And his method basically was to have the government get very involved in funding funds for basically improving the infrastructure. And my question is, to what extent do you think that kind of approach would be helpful today, and what are the factors that keep it from coming into existence?
Thank you for that question. Very good question. I think it would be wonderful. I think with this current state of confusion in our political system, it will be 5 to 10 years before we see a program like Franklin Delano Roosevelt implement to alleviate joblessness right after the Depression. And so my focus today, though, as I hope I made clear, was not what government can do. Government can do. Government must do. Government has a role in everybody's life. But we are in gridlock right now. It is a mess out here politically. And our president, we know what the number one goal of the opposing party is, and that is to make sure that he is a one-term president. And that's all they're interested in. That's all they're focused on. So nothing is going to happen of any significance that will change the lives of black people at this moment. Therefore, what I'm focused on is what must we do? What can black people do to help themselves? And there's much that we can do. We are a resourceful and creative people, but it seems to me that it takes us about 100 years to tackle an issue once we get angry and to fix it, but we do it. It took us 200 years to free ourselves. Think about this. From 1619 to 1864, and we freed ourselves without guns or money. 1864, the Emancipation Proclamation was written. 65, it was signed, and we were free. But it took us 250 years. We did it because we were right and we were angry. We then began to march down the path for civil rights, voting rights, public access, and the killing of Jim Crow. That took 100 years, from 1864 to 1964. The civil rights laws were signed. 65, the Voting Rights Act was signed. It took us 100 years, but we did it without guns or money. Why? Because we were right. So it seems to me one of the challenges and one of the reasons we are not getting to the promised land is that and there's a biblical analogy, when the Israelites were freed from the Pharaoh, they had to wander in the desert for 40 years to understand that freedom ain't free. That it is harder to be free than it is to be enslaved, because now you have to organize, now you have to connect, now you have to collaborate, now you have to build infrastructure. This is much more difficult than someone telling you what to do every minute of your lives. So if you think about this deeply, we have really got the last pieces of our freedom in 1964 and 1965. In our lifetime. So for the last 40 years, we have been partying. But I'm here to announce that the party is over. And now we must get serious, and there are things that we can do. And there need not be another book written about this. I mean, it has been analyzed, there are white papers, there are a million suggestions of what can be done. We must now get down to the business of doing it. And this is what makes me angry. I'm not doing enough, and I'm doing a lot. So as I said earlier, you know I'm angry with those who can do more but do not do anything. There's much that we can do ourselves that would demonstrate to a greater community the thought and the willingness of the greater community to do even more than what they're doing. And this is what frustrates me, and this requires a different kind of leadership in the 21st century.
I've observed, seen, heard that over the years that the black Americans seem to resent a lot of time people that attempt to rise to get someplace in the community. Is that correct? And
yeah, this is a common cultural phenomenon. We don't generally talk about this in public. But for the sake of keeping it real, you hurt me really bad on that one. Yeah, that's right. There is a kind of cultural picadillo that we have. We call it the crab in the barrel mentality. It is not with all black people. It is with too many. We need to fix that. That's one of the deep-seated psychological things that we need to fix, which says something to me a little bit different. I believe that black people need a narrow or a narrower cultural vision. Let me say that again. We need a narrow cultural or a narrower cultural vision. In other words, what we must focus on in the 21st century as black people is on making black people the best that they can be. Not focus on making America the best that it can be. But our cultural vision must be, and our time, treasure, and talent must be purely focused on improving us. Now, what happens when we improve black people? What happens when we are really competitive? We improve America. You see, the strengthening of black people strengthens America because no one wants to be a weak link in this multicultural chain called America. So we need a call to arms, if you will, of all black people of means and resources to narrow focus their energy around doing everything they can with their time, treasure, and talent. Forget about the crab in the barrel mentality and negative self-image and self-hatred that we have to deal with in our community. Push that aside and focus our time, energy, time, talent, and treasure on fixing the things that we can fix ourselves. And then for all others that have compassion and empathy and want to contribute and do what they can in ways that they can, we're not chasing anyone away. We encourage you to do that. But most importantly, let me say that differently. Wherever black people are going in the 21st century, it will be because black people will take them there.
Hey, what's up, folks? Now, there is something that I want to talk about, and I think that it's important. Dr. Fraser, George Fraser, has highlighted one crucial, one of the most crucial things that are important. That is the black entrepreneurial culture, and how black people, and mostly I feel like he was trying to motivate black people to stand up for, their rights and get to know their entrepreneurial life, get to know that the system doesn't care about you. And is that type of person that usually concentrates on the community, right? The community. Like, he's a person that believes that you as a black person, you cannot move by your own. And I feel like the problem with the black community, especially like economically, we always tend to want to move by ourselves because black folks don't trust black folks. A black man doesn't trust a black man. A black woman doesn't trust a black woman. But what do we need? Like, first thing, we need to trust each other. From trusting each other, then from there, we can work together. And he talks about pooling resources, like together as black people, coming up and pooling resources as black people. This is one of the major things that he talks about that I feel like everyone needs to pay attention to that. Another thing that I would like to just let you know, Dr. George Fraser didn't grow like where there is wealth. He went through some things, and from that, it built the character that he is having today. And as a person who is trying to stand in front of you to tell you this, it's important that you can try to reflect this as a black person. Because I know, as for the record, as for it is that black people has highest purchasing power. So imagine if you could take your money, and I'm not saying like do not buy from other races, no, but for the sake, like if you try to look at history, and this is the time that we are trying to find a way of returning back the resources, because black people, let's just go back to history. Black people worked entirely. They built wealth that they didn't even use. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like the fact that he's trying to remind you to work, take your money, invest it back in a black business. Look at your folks who are around you, where or who you can work with. Right? Look at these people who are around you. Move together as a block, move together as black people, promote black business, work together. And I think these are one of the most important things that he talks about. Now, my explanation about the history and why black unity is important, especially when we are looking at growing black business, the black dollar, the black money, right? Now, historically, black people have worked for the longest time, and they've worked to create enormous wealth that is not theirs. You and I know the truth, right? So we need to find a way of protecting the little that we have by, one, buying from a black shop. And I'm not saying that it is a must, but for the sake, for those people who understand the struggles that their brothers and sisters are going through, right? And the wealth disparities that black people and white people, or compared to other races that have, you'll realize that there is a huge disparity comparatively between blacks and white people. So saying that we could put like black resources together, this will help cover this gap that we are having. So I think looking at it like in an historical perspective, looking at it at an economical perspective, it is still right to uphold and to understand that putting this in mind is important, because one, it teaches you to work as a group as black people. It teaches you to move as a block as black people. Now, I understand black people are still dealing with traumas. First, not trusting a black folk that looks like you. And I understand sometimes we have the self-hate among ourselves, because you find like black people won't buy from other black folks. I would also need to put into consideration factors that are always there with black businesses. Black folks, again, will not want to buy from black business because of some other factors. Like human beings are rational human beings, and I know very well that there has been complaints about black shops, how they trade, how they give their services, but this is not entirely like every black business. Okay, the reason for me even talking about this video is that I see a point where Dr. George Fraser talks about pulling resources together. And folks, let's just say the truth. We can't pull resources together if I don't trust you. I have to trust you so that we can pull these resources together, right? So, first, I feel like it begins with you as a black person, seeing your black person as a brother. One, by being a keeper of your black folk, standing for the rights, standing for your rights, standing for each other's rights, you know. So those are one of the most important things that my takeaway in this video, right? Another thing is that you need to understand that even if we are trying to trust each other, because for us to like work together, we need to trust each other. Like, I'll not be afraid that you're gonna be sabotaging my business or something, right? So like working together as black folk should be something that we should embrace. And I feel like it's important that we have people that are talking about this like right now, right? So I just want to know what you feel about this video. Tell me honestly. Tell me how you feel about all this. I'll most definitely want to know, because as you know, I'm usually learning from you, and you also usually learning from me. And yeah, we can, work together, and I'll be happy to see a community where we have black people supporting each other, black people working so hard, working tirelessly to elevate, other black folks. Because you and I know very truth that what Dr. George Fraser is saying is the truth. And everyone, because we are trying to bring back the power of black people. In as much as in the United States we have the culture of consumerism, it won't be so much if money circulated in black businesses, in black communities, supporting black people. Because I know consumerism is one thing that the United States teaches its own people. The culture of just consuming without creating. Kindly, let's just support black folks. And I felt so touched with what Dr. George Fraser was trying to talk about, because I feel like, indeed, it's important. It's important part of embracing and understanding our folks in different realms, especially in entrepreneurial realms. Because look, our chances of a black person going to look for work, you will not get it as compared to white folks. So if there is an entrepreneurial culture, this means that these are people who are coming out to employ themselves. You can do this, I can do this, we can make it work. Like for instance, for me as as an African, as a black African, I understand this is a struggle that we're also going through, even here back in Africa, because our folks won't buy from a black-owned business, like from fellow Africans, but they will tend to buy from Indian shops, Indian restaurants, right? So this is something that it's happening globally, and I would just like to advise, or if not advise, but say this: like, charity begins at home, right? And you understand the history of black folks. You understand the importance of pulling resources together. You understand the importance of moving as a block. And this is what Dr. George Fraser is trying to advise you, is trying to tell you to, think about, talk about, because it's important for me and for you that we all have this moving, like working together, So tell me what you think about this video. I'll most definitely appreciate your take on this. As you know, these are presented Jintook Stories, and I'm hoping to see you in my next video. Tell me if you're always learning through my videos. I'll most definitely appreciate. Tell me what you feel about this in the comment section, because there's so much atrocities that black people have gone through, And as a way of waking up and as a way of sprouting again, it begins with we banking on our own unity. That's the most important thing that we're having. Until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.